I'm pulling away just a little. I was stuck in the middle, but I can't undo this. We've taken some wrong turns, had a lot to learn, but we can't undo this. There's a tie between your heart and mine, and it's grown so strong over time, bound together wherever we travel. Our beautiful tangle we can't unravel.
This to us, we enjoy this a lot more than playing to 50,000 people or 10,000 people or 1,000 people or whatever, because we're listening, you know.
We tied the knot long ago, back when we hoped that we couldn't undo this. Now we are so intertwined like a passion fruit vine, and we can't undo this. There's a tie between your heart and mine, and it's grown so strong over time, bound together wherever we travel. Our beautiful tangle we can't unravel. Cash, money can't buy that. Time of my life, cash. And all you gave us, cash. Sweet memories that we saved up to keep, made us so much richer. Wish I could thank you, Mr. Cash.
The range of musicians is just totally amazing. As I said, I grew up on the Irish fiddle diddle and the Republican stuff and this, that and the other.
Each year, same time, Labor Day weekend, each year, it's on my calendar, and it's a way of getting away from everything.
Creepers, creepers, I've got no recess factor. Oh, but I live in hope, 'cause I'm a greater debtor.
This particular festival is small. We don't have to compete for seats at a stage. We don't have to rush over and get into that tent to listen to these people. You know, everyone who's on here eventually will come through and play in front of you.
I try to explain it to city people who are this, that and the other, and they just look at you in a strange way when you say, this is what you do. What do you do there? Well, we talk to people and we hear good music and we hear people telling stories.
The world turns as I grow. The more I learn, the less I know. The world turns as I grow. The more I learn, the less I know.
Good country, good people. It is essentially that. People here are interested in the music. It's more than just a social occasion.
But it's amazing, you come here every year and you gradually get to know people year after year after year. It was just a beautiful break from the stresses of work.
Mercy, free me from searching as an earthling. There Adam gave me. Let me be fast as I go here. Goodbye, you know me. The steel is just another place where dreams get sold. Baby, when the lights go down, no one's around. Thanks so much.
Well, welcome to episode 2 of Troubadour Tunes, and firstly, thanks so much to everybody who supported the project so far, watching episode 1, making a contribution, just getting involved, sharing, let as many people know about it as possible. We're putting a lot of work into it, and we really, it means a lot that people are watching it and enjoying it, and thanks so much for all of your feedback as well. We've had so many people get in touch and say, want to see a lot more of Jetty Road, and we've delivered. Yes. We've got more of Jetty Road. We've got, you've just seen some highlights from the festival, and I wanted to kick off by asking Andrew and Heather a few questions about the festival itself. So first up, when I was talking with Christian at the festival this year, Andrew, he made the point that the great thing about this festival is that it's your taste, it's everything you like, yep. and that's what makes it such an honour to be selected to come and perform. And I feel the same way. I think many people who get the opportunity. So I don't know, just tell me what's the process that you go through?
Oh, well, it's the one time in my life that I get to play God, just once a year, and
He is God.
And so. This is the one time that I actually get to select the people I would really like to hear, in the hope that the people who have followed the music I've been presenting for 40 odd years like the same stuff. So it's sort of more like my private garden party and my private house concert than a festival, and I guess that's how I go about it. I tell people who I've never heard of, who email and say, how do we apply? I just explain, been in the business 42 years.
You'll have to talk to God.
You have to talk to
Exactly.
God, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever say that down the phone and go, I'm the god of this festival?
Being an agnostic, it's actually a bit hard to get away with that.
Oh no, I actually find I think it's easier for atheists and agnostics to play God than your average religious person, because then they get really conflicted, don't they?
Yeah. Although I must say, a few atheists we know are even more strident in their disbeliefs than most God-botherers are in their beliefs. So.
That's a whole other topic that we could probably do a whole other show on.
Yeah.
So you guys must have to put in an inordinate. What's it? I mean, I was here for the setup this year, putting up tents, building the stages, setting up the PA. I mean, that was a big enough job in it. So what's it like for the two of you to get prepared for the festival, to put it on?
Well, Heather works a lot harder than me, so she can say something in a moment.
But you're God. You're God. So that goes without saying.
Even though I'm God, I've had great difficulty becoming a dictator. But we do have some wonderful volunteers who come and help every year. So you had a hand in the stage, which Roger and John from Dingo's Breakfast build every year.
Cordless drill.
Don't ever tell them that's the main reason they get booked.
Yeah. I won't.
And
I hope they're not watching.
Lots of other people, they know where everything is, they know where to get the tents from and put them up, they know where the chairs are hiding in the toilets and so on. So yes, it's a lot of work, but we've been doing it for 25 years, so I guess that's just life. But Heather has the harder and the less glamorous side of it. Tell us a bit about what you have to do.
That's not actually true. Andrew does a lot more than just the setup, the booking of the acts, and can be quite stressful for him these days. He had a bit of a breakdown a few years ago, and
that's true.
And that process can be quite difficult for him. Mind you, once the festival starts, he's fine.
And we have good medicine here too.
Yeah, lots of that.
Which just don't want to give the wrong impression. We don't drink all the time, just most of the time.
Just when we've got events on, like video filming.
And the great thing about the festival is everyone's got to pitch in.
Yeah.
I was due on stage, I think around about 8 o'clock on the Friday night, and then you came to me about 6:30 and said, "Would you like to cook on the barbecue?" And I like cooking on barbecue, so I jumped right in and did that. But this year was really interesting because it was right, wasn't it? It was right in the cusp of everything starting to shut down. All the toilet paper was disappearing.
Oh yeah.
That's what everyone was talking about. With every toilet paper, no one knew. There's a lot of people collecting the eucalyptus leaves around the tent sites. But at a festival, I like to let my phone just run down to nothing and switch off. But because I was involved in filming a bit of things, I had access to a PowerPoint. and I plugged my phone in, and around about the Sunday, that was when I went on the news site. Oh my God! And I went around saying the world we left before we came to the festival that year was completely different to the world we went back to. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
it hit you around about halfway down the Calder Highway. The world's changed.
We were so lucky. We didn't lose a customer. They all came. And yet a week later or 10 days later we were totally shut down. So that was fantastic for us. The other big change is that it rained. The drought broke 2 days before the festival. So this dry, barren mess.
Yep.
This Dust Bowl has now got the best grass we've ever seen.
Did you get sick of people coming up and saying, what happens to grapes when it's rained like that?
Yes, actually.
You did get sick of that? Yeah. Because I was definitely, I infringed on that, and I learnt a lot.
I didn't dare go and look at them, to be quite honest.
Grapes aren't too keen. If you're interested, grapes don't like rain in big chunks, as it turns out.
At that stage of the year.
At that stage of the year. Yeah. Any other time, get into it, rain. But around about April, maybe have a look at when the festival's on. Check your calendar. And don't rain like that. So look, we really do hope you enjoyed the rest of episode 2, and this is us. Cheers, live from the Burke Wills Winery.
Hey guys, thanks for having us here today. It's really fun to be here. We're going to do a bit of a happy-go-lucky song, I think. Who are you? I'm Lee. I'm Paula.
I'm Julian.
We're Jetty Road. And we're going to do a happy-go-lucky song. This one's all about seeing life through rose-coloured glasses and seeing the glasses half full and not half empty. This one's called I'm a Dreamer. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, go. You see clouds, I see the blue. You see walls, I walk right through. You see old, I see brand new. 'Cause I'm a dreamer. Alright! You see rain, I see a rainbow. You say it's over, I say it ain't so. You see grass, I'll find your four-leaf clover. 'Cause I'm a dreamer. 'Cause baby, I'm a dreamer. I'm a head in the clouds, make believer. 'Cause baby, I'm a dreamer. You place limits in your mind. I say mountains are there to climb, taking the view one day at a time. 'Cause I'm a dreamer. 'Cause baby, I'm a dreamer. I'm a head in the clouds, make believer. 'Cause baby, I'm a dreamer. Do 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 do. Come on. From the day I was born, I had stars in my eyes. You hear noise, I hear the music. You stand back, I get down to it. Like a child, don't lose the magic. Be a dreamer. Life is sweet if you only choose it. Yeah, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Do 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 do. Ooh, I'm a dreamer. Make believer. Yeah. 'Cause I'm a dreamer. Yeah, I'm a dreamer. Do soon. Thanks, guys.
I'll let you introduce, Andrew, the interview coming up next.
Yeah, Chris Smither, one of the greats of the American folk and blues, acoustic folk and blues scene, originally from New Orleans, but he moved up to Boston just in time for the great folk scare of the 1960s, and he's been doing it ever since. All but 12 years he took off for drinking. But he's a lovely guy, great musician. He was managed by Joan Baez, his manager. He had some major record contracts, and you'll find out a lot more as you listen to my little chat a couple of days ago with Chris Smither. Well, hello there, Chris Smither. Fantastic to see you.
Good to see you, Andrew.
And welcome to several hundred computer screens in Australia. And I have to tell you that in Australia we're suffering from Smither withdrawal symptoms because we haven't seen you here for seven years.
Oh my! Has it been that long?
It has, yeah. Can you tell me about Open Up?
Open Up. Well, it's not a new song, but it's one of the most encouraging songs that I ever wrote. It's just about trying to open yourself, to change, which is, and to opportunity, and trying not to keep things so shut up.
Thinking is the measure of how much I need a clue. I'm still flying blind, hoping I might find a way to stop my thinking, open up my mind. I don't see too clearly, I wish you'd show me how. Seeing is believing, and I believe I need it now. It comes as no surprise, I can't analyze open up my eyes. Oh, my feelings hurt me plenty, not feeling hurts me more. Feelings got me kneeling down, wounded to the core. Not feelings got its charms. You find out who it harms when your lover soon discovers you can't open up your arms. It's like being in a prison, you lock yourself inside. Limited perspective, even with eyes open wide. But I can't walk no more through scenes I've seen before. Come to me, bring a key, open up the door. It's just love, it's a puzzle, of that there is no doubt. Can't do nothing with it, you sure can't do without. Can't learn your part, you don't know where to start till you quit all your questions and open up your heart. One small suggestion, quit your questions, open up your heart.
Tell me, how's the lockdown going for you?
Well, it's, except for the fact that it keeps going, it's very much like when I'm home anyway, if I'm not on the road. Although I have to say this is the longest I've been home in 50
I was going to
years.
actually ask you that. Is this the longest period your family has had you at home ever?
Yeah, it
And
is.
you still talk to each other?
Oh, we're getting along pretty well. The girl is 16 now, or almost 16. and she's pretty self-sufficient. She has her own cave in the house and comes out every once in a while. But when she does, she's quite pleasant, you know. And,
at 16, that's an achievement. Now, if everything was normal and there was no COVID, how many days of a month would you be away from home on the road at the moment?
Well, you know, I've been playing about just under 100 shows a year for the last few years, and you figure somewhat more than that because there are travel days involved, and so, you know, about a third of the time I'm gone, 120 days, something like that.
Just last thing on the COVID thing, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is terrible and 10 is terrific, how well do you think your president is handling the COVID pandemic?
0.
Or -1 perhaps?
Maybe a -1, you know. It's embarrassing.
Do you mind if we go back a few decades, like about 5 decades? I remember you telling me that when you were a very young man, you left the family home in New Orleans and headed north looking for the music, which sounds very ironic considering New Orleans is the blues and jazz capital of the world. Tell us a bit about that journey and why it happened.
Well, you know, New Orleans is a funny place. It's a strange, it's a very intense music experience to grow up there and live there, but at the same time, the style of music, I was into old blues guys, you know, and playing acoustic guitar, and people would look at me and say, God, Chris, you know, that's pretty quaint. You know, I was, they were puzzled by why I was so interested in sort of old fashioned stuff. Why would I play an acoustic guitar instead of an electric guitar? New Orleans is not a guitar player's town. It still isn't. It's horns and drums and keyboards, you know, and the music that I was interested in was extremely popular in the Northeast, you know, especially up in the corridor running from New York to Boston and down to Washington, D.C., including Philadelphia, Baltimore, all those big cities on the Eastern Seaboard. And so that's where I went, you know, that's where Dylan was hanging out. That's where Joan Baez was you know, sort of queen of a folk revival at the time, and that's where all the songwriters were.
And how did you get your foot in the door?
Well, it wasn't that, you know, it's a strange thing. I sort of hitched a ride with a woman who had a car and was originally from Washington, D.C., and she said, oh, come on, I'll show you the ropes. And then I had met in Florida Eric von Schmidt, who was sort of a central figure in the Cambridge folk scene, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Club 47, a very famous venue at the time, back in the 60s. And through him, I met a couple of other people who were in the New York scene, and I got introduced to people. But there were a raft of little clubs, all kinds of little places to play, and I just started working at it. You know, and spent about 5 years playing all these little clubs and keeping myself alive. I never got a job in all that time.
Was Boston, or should I say Cambridge, was that sort of the home base in the end?
Yes, it was. And I still live in Massachusetts. I'm out in the western part of the state now, about an hour and 3/4 from Boston in Cambridge.
And was Tom Rush still fairly influential there when you got there?
Oh, he was. Yes, he was a very big deal. You know, I counted that as a big deal when I met him. I thought, okay, I'm on my way now.
Fantastic.
I'm beating all the stars, hanging out with the right people.
And you were on the way, and you even got as far as signing a recording deal with United Artists.
Yeah.
But then something happened.
Originally, the first deal was with Poppy Records when it was part of RCA. And then I signed with United Artists when United Artists bought Poppy Records.
Right. But that album was never released by United Artists. Is that right?
Never was. No, it finally came out, but not by United Artists.
So about 5 or 6 years into this journey, you suddenly sort of entered what you called your dark period, I think. Is that right?
Yes. Very dark.
Yeah. And you describe yourself as being drunk for 12 years.
That's right. You know,
Have you any idea?
I was probably drunk. I was drunk for longer than that, but I was non-functionally drunk for about 12 years.
And have you any idea what sparked that off?
I think it's called addiction. You know, it's just one of those things. You know, it's happens to a lot of people, and what's remarkable is not that I got into it, but that I got out of it.
I remember you telling me you were working as a carpenter.
I was.
And somebody asked you what you did for a living.
Yes, that was after I quit the booze, and I was hanging around with a lot of people who were also avoiding alcohol, and I gotten to be fairly nicely acquainted with a woman who I had many long conversations with, and at one point she looked at me, she said, "Chris, I've been talking to you for months and I have no idea what it is that you do." And I said, "Oh, I'm a carpenter." I almost said I was a carpenter, and then I just stopped, and I think I'd been sober for almost a year at that point. And I said, "Actually, you know, I'm a musician. Excuse me, I got to go make a phone call." I went and I called my boss, my carpenter boss, and said, "I got to quit. I got to quit this. I almost told somebody I was a carpenter." And he said, "Well, that won't do."
Right.
Good luck.
So how did you take the steps to open the door again back into venues?
It was not as tough as I would have thought. You know, there's a lot of serendipitous things happen when you start doing healthy things with your life, and it's very difficult to explain them. I'm not sure that there is any explanation, but suddenly, you know, people became willing and interested. You know, I met the two people who wound up managing me for years, one of whom I married. But they were eager. They were fans from way back when, and I learned somehow in the interim of getting healthy again, I learned that if you have a manager, it's best to pay attention to them and do as they say. It's very silly to pay somebody 15% of your income and not listen to what they have to say, you know. And a lot of things changed. A lot of things changed for me. My behavior changed, and it's difficult to explain. It's almost a transformation. You know, people will look at somebody who's in a terrible situation, such as I was, and say, "Oh, you know, he'll never change."
Somebody who's been a friend for a long time and was very influential in the earlier days of your career. I remember you telling me, I think a bunch of musicians were sitting around singing, and there was a rather quiet, petite, slender, red-haired girl there.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Tell just enlarge on that story a bit.
Well, she was Dick Waterman's girlfriend. You know, she used to hang around. Dick Waterman managed all these old blues guys. You know, he had something to do with all of them. Skip James, John Hurt, Fred McDowell, all of them. And we used to go over to Dick's house. All of us aspiring guitar players, singer-songwriters would just drop by Dick's house to see who was there, you know, and just hang out in the living room. And Waterman's girlfriend, the redhead that you mentioned, was always there. She was always hanging around, and you know, to me, she was just Dick Waterman's girlfriend, and her name was Bonnie. And then I remember one time they moved to Philadelphia for about 6 months, and I stopped in the house to see them, and she said, "What have you been up to?" And I said, "Well, I've been writing some nice songs." And she said, "Well, play me one." And I played her "Love Me Like a Man," or "Love You Like a Man." And she said, "Oh, you know, you could do that on slide." And I said, "Well, I don't really play slide." And she said, "Oh, it's easy." And she picked up this guitar and started wailing away on it. And that was the first time that I ever knew that Bonnie Raitt even played the guitar, let alone could sing like a bird, you know. And of course, the rest is history. A couple of years later, she made her first record, and
And she's recorded a couple of your songs, hasn't she?
She has indeed, paid for a house.
Your most recent album is Call Me Lucky, which is about 2 years old.
Yeah.
And that and all your albums are available on your website in the store. And the website is just smither.com. So even though people can't see you live, they can at least buy your product at the moment.
Yeah.
Talking about seeing you live, I noticed on the website you've got a gig on the 21st of June. I forget where it is now, Philadelphia probably. But it seems unlikely that would go ahead in this COVID time.
I am doing some live streaming concerts.
Yep. And so I saw the one a couple of weeks ago. So you've got another one planned, have you?
The Arc, which is a club in Ann Arbor, Michigan, is sponsoring a live streaming concert. I think that's the 26th of June.
Great, and people can get onto your website, and it'll be up there on the website.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. All right, we've got to go now. It's been great to talk to you, and
it's great to see you again, Andrew. I'm sorry it's been so long.
We'll move heaven and earth to get you back here sometime in the next 24 months.
Let's do it.
Right. Good to see you. Bye.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.
This next song we're going to play for you is actually quite a personal one for us. We've more recently had families. Lee and Julian have twins. Twins, yeah. We're twins and I've had twins, yes. So it's our house is. And I've got a 6 month younger than her twins, so yeah. she's almost 4 now. So a little girl. So. When we were in the midst of trying to write for a new album, we were arm deep in changing nappies at 2 a.m. in the morning, and sometimes you think that's going to be the furthest thing away from actually getting back and doing music again. And so we had to make a concerted effort to sit down and allocate time to do songwriting amongst the babies and the twins. And we all have, as mothers and parents even, insecurities. Yeah. That come to the surface, and this song is all about, embracing those insecurities, about your insecurities or your flaws in who you are, yeah. And kind of knowing that is the history of who you are. It's the tapestry of who you are. Yeah. There are these flaws, and in this day of social media, everyone is trying to be perfect, yeah. And we sort of decided that we didn't want to be like that anymore. So we wrote this song to embrace the fact that there is beauty in imperfection, and this one is called Bumps and Bruises. 3, 4. I know my eyes have seen better days. It takes me way more time to cover up the lines, and my little fingers crooked as can be, from the football that I played with the boys when I was 8. All these bumps and bruises, my broken heart is crying like a river, like a river. You might see the fault lines, but I think that the laughing lines make you prettier, oh so prettier. These bumps and bruises are everything to me. And can you see this scar here on my chest? It was when my heart was broken. First loves they ain't forgotten, and these hands might not be what they used to be. Oh, but they held you in my arms and sheltered you from harm. All these bumps and bruises, my broken heart is crying like a river, like a river. You might see the fault lines, but I think that the laughing lines make you prettier, oh so prettier. Laid out like a map for you to see. These bumps and bruises are everything to me. My broken heart is crying like a river, like a river. You might see the phone lines, but I think that the laugh lines make you prettier, oh so prettier. All these bumps and bruises, my broken heart is crying like a river. But I think that the laugh lines make you prettier, oh so prettier. These bumps and bruises are everything to me.
Thank you. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Well, let's welcome the fantastic band you just heard from, Jetty Road. You want to come down and have a chat? How are we?
Hello. Hi.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Do you want to start by introducing yourselves?
Okay, a lot to remember. Lee
Julian.
and Paula. Yeah.
How are we, guys?
We're great. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. How did you guys feel performing today? It's surely been a little bit since you've been up on stage?
Yeah, well, we've done some lives at home,
Yeah,
which is really good. We do that every now and then. But it's just really good to be able to get out of the house and play and just, we're happy.
How do you find the difference between performing live over the internet? No, you still have a captive audience in live recording, but you don't have that emotion to bounce off. How do you find the difference between performing to essentially no one but someone compared to that real energy of a room?
Well, I found that one of the big differences is you have to cheer yourself at the end of the song. It's odd.
I think it's interesting. When you're doing it on the internet, just on the camera, you're more concentrating on the song.
Yeah.
Because and whereas live gig, you're giving yourself to the audience, so it is two totally different things.
I suppose when you're there, you've got like an audience to somewhat hide behind, where if you're just sitting at home without that energy, it's just your talent they're focused on.
Yeah.
Well, we just had a couple listen to some of your songs. I have this question for you that I love asking musicians, especially folk singers and storytellers like yourself. Do you find that you like to write your lyrics before the music, or are you a melody person first? How do you guys go about that?
Well, it kind of happens for us at the same time.
Yep.
But melody first and foremost comes through first for us, particularly Paula and I. And then we kind of, sounds come out to blend with it, and then we've got an idea for a song. Sometimes we might have an idea of a song before we go out, so we deliberately write for that. But there's a lot of times we could sit down and...
You're writing a song with the vowel sounds. So the way that you want the song, and then you write it from there, or write yourself a story, and then
that's fair.
Sometimes it happens at the supermarket too, doesn't it?
It does.
I think there's been a lot of times where Lee will come home and go, "I've got this song. I came up with it on the chip aisle." Or something.
I think that's one of my favourite parts of music is the storytelling behind it and the stories that come from. You find that a lot of your songs are based on true stories, or
no? Sometimes it is about our lives, and other times it's purely observational.
Can I just say, since having the kids, the most recent album has been for us wanting to write for when we go out and do a live performance, and we want to celebrate performing. So really it's partly there are definitely stories on the new album about your house and living in a shoebox full of kids and people, but then there's another thing about wanting to get out and just just have an awesome time on stage
And
and make the audience feel the same
Yeah,
thing.
and feel the
celebrate.
joy of music.
Of course, so you definitely would consider yourself a live band. Have you got any stories that jump to mind of your touring days, or any cool either bad gigs, great gigs? What's the first gig that jumps to mind?
We've done a lot of touring over the years. We've done around Australia and in Europe and America and Canada, and we've played a gig. One of the first gigs we went over to South Australia and played the Governor Hindmarsh, and only 4 people rocked up. We're talking about the number 4, and it was just like, but God, it's character building.
It is,
and it has to be, you know. And you haven't lived life as a muso if you haven't gone out and done that. And then we've played a smokers bar in
Germany.
In Germany.
Sometimes you do some big festivals and you fill in the gaps with gigs, and sometimes you don't know what they are until you get there.
Yeah.
It turns out this joint was a smokers club, and
And
Paula was coughing through songs, and there was a big guy at the bar with his back to us the whole
pretty
time.
much.
with
I
his butt
was
crack
just
showing.
like
You could see his bum crack the whole gig.
But that's what we remember. Like, it's just
And
funny.
then, and can I just say, there was another gig where we had dressing rooms between a country act, Brooks and Dunn, and Taylor Swift. And then there was another one where we went backstage and went to the catering tent, and Vince Gill came and sat down with us
And was
and
talking,
had dinner with us for an hour. So you've got the best
Huge
things.
spectrum.
It's just, I once did a gig, I got there, and it was an old Blockbuster that's been shut down. They turned it into a soup kitchen. They were set up in the corner. And that was the gig in Footscray.
Awesome.
But I definitely feel that those Wade Griggs you don't know about till you show up. You talked about touring over in Europe and whatnot. There's a very distinct, like, Australian folky kind of country sound that comes with Tamworth and that touring Australia. How did you find the difference of going over to the UK and Europe with that? You know, I don't want to pigeonhole you into an Australian sound, but there was that Tamworth, country folky sound. How did you find that went over in Europe?
People think that we think we sound like something, but when people hear our music, they say, "Oh, that's Australian."
Yeah.
So you have an international Australian sound, and you go over and play, and their audiences, especially in Europe, can be quite traditional.
Yeah.
They love their boot scooting. They love, like, we had a fiddle player, Amanda Lynn player with us at the time, and they really love all that folkiness about the music. They get into it a lot.
Before we head off, do you want to tell us a little bit about your album? And I know there can't be too many gigs coming up, but pitch your live shows on Facebook, or where can we find you, and where can we listen to the fabulous music of Jetty Road?
Well, the current album, which was released in September last year, is called Because We Can. Where you can go to our website, jettyroad.com, or join us on Facebook, message us. It's us that gets back. And if you want to buy an album,
we're on Spotify, on Apple Music.
Play, the works. Definitely easy to check out in this time. So when you're bored during lockdown, everyone at home, definitely check out Jetty Road. Thank you very much for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, this next one, the last one we're going to do for you today, is a song about Paula and I, where we grew up. Our name is Jetty Road, and we grew up on a little place in Nungurna, in East Gippsland, and we grew up on Nungurna Jetty Road. So that's why we are called Jetty Road. And this song is all about where we grew up and the fields and what we were doing as little kids. We would run around and sing songs to the neighbours. We'd build cubbies. We'd take the boat down to the water. We only lived 100 metres from the water, from the lake. So it was a real idyllic childhood, and we absolutely loved growing up there. So that's what this song is all about.
All by the sea, a dusty little winding road where Mom and Dad, they built a home to raise a family. Oh, wild and free, we ran around the countryside, took our turn to run and hide and play, hide and seek. running through the fields into the woods, racing like the wind that whistles round the willow tree. It's the only place where time stood still. Everything was magical and sweet, like a melody, wild and free. You and me, impossible to tell apart, joined at the hip and at the heart, we'd sing in harmony. Oh, by the sea, we played our games till the sun went down, and wait for Mom to call us in for tea. You and me, running through the fields into the woods, racing like the wind that whistles round the willow tree. It's the only place where time stood still. Everything was magical and sweet, like a melody, wild and free. Running through the fields into the woods, racing like the wind that whistles round the willow tree. It's the only place where time stood still. Everything was magical and sweet, like a melody, yeah, wild and free. Wild and free. Thanks for having us, guys. It's a pleasure.
Well, that was a wonderful performance, as I'm sure you'll agree, by Jetty Road. Thanks so much for tuning in for episode 2. We have to go back and film a bunch of other stuff, so we're hoping to get some more stuff to everybody sometime in the next month or so. Thanks so much, and goodbye from Burke Wills Winery.
Cheers.
Please support the Highlander Bar's brand new takeaway food and delivery service, Cougar Eats, now delivering 6 kilometres from the Melbourne CBD, including Footscray, Elwood and St Kilda. Call 0476 949 772 or go to cougareats.com.au. The cast and crew of Troubadour Tunes choose to stay at home, except for when they're out, but they mainly stay at home, most of the time. Andrew Pattison is dressed by Vic Market and Savers, the recycle superstore. Okay, well, before we get into that, Chris has sent us over a bit of a live performance right from his little studio, and you'll notice that he hasn't actually probably got enough guitars. So if you've got a guitar to send Chris, pop it in the post.
Open up your heart.